they're spinning. Everyone's spinning. And the truth is that nobody, and I mean nobody but possibly 3 to 4 attorneys and the people involved know what actually happened, know what took place, know the actual laws. Most people get on TV and don't even know what the Presidential Records Act is, and they most certainly don't know what the Espionage Act is. The truth of the matter is, this is insane politics in the courtroom, and it has to stop. It's garbage, it's nonsense, and until they hear our side, which is now our turn, which I'm looking forward to, we will not understand the truth.
So, quote, most people who go on TV don't even know what the Presidential Records Act is, and they most certainly don't know what the Espionage Act is. Well, for no reason at all, here's Alina Habba's client, Donald Trump.
Charging a former president of the United States under the Espionage Act of 1917 wasn't meant for this. An act for a crime so heinous that only the death penalty would do, and threatening me with 400 years in prison for possessing my own presidential papers, which just about every other president has done, is one of the most outrageous and vicious legal theories ever put forward in an American court of law. The Espionage Act has been used to go after traitors and spies. It has nothing to do with a former president legally keeping his own documents.
So in terms of people who don't know what the Espionage Act is, I'd recommend Alina Habba start with Donald Trump. And let's be clear, obfuscating what the Espionage Act is exactly what Trump is doing here. He is purposefully misrepresenting the Espionage Act to make it sound like some desperate effort to take him down with irrelevant, obscure statutes dating back to World War I, when clearly that's not true. The Espionage Act doesn't only deal with espionage. It was used in this case because it includes willfully withholding national defense information. Here's the statute. Whoever having unauthorized possession of, access to, or control over any document relating to the national defense or information relating to the national defense which information the possessor has reason to believe could be used to the injury of the United States or to the advantage of any foreign nation, willfully retains the same and fails to deliver it to the officer or employee of the United States entitled to receive it. And given the fact that the National Archives and the FBI attempted over and over to get these classified documents back, only to have those efforts rebuffed by Trump, that is exactly the appropriate charge in this instance. So when Alina Habba bemoans those who don't understand the law, I can only assume she's talking about her own client. And then, of course, there's the Presidential Records Act. And I gotta say, you must have some next-level shamelessness to be the attorney for Donald Trump and yet suggest that other people don't understand what the law is with regard to the Presidential Records Act. What that act did is establish that presidential records belong to the U.S. government, not the president personally, and therefore must be preserved. Imagine patronizing everyone for supposedly not understanding this law when your client quite literally did the polar opposite of what the law requires. I mean, this is like Roy Moore scolding everyone else about the age of consent. And by the way, don't take it from me. If you want further proof that Trump viewed White House documents as his own personal mementos, here's his own former Attorney General, Bill Barr.
But in a case of this import, and with a special counsel statute, would this have to go to the Attorney General for some kind of review or decision-making process before this indictment happens and goes public?
Well, under the regulation, the call can be made just by the special counsel, but I'm sure they had worked out an agreement whereby he would keep the Attorney General in the loop, and if the Attorney General had strong feelings, he'd voice them. But I think the Attorney General said pretty early on he would be guided by the recommendation of the counsel. Now, we can't forget here that this entire thing came about because of reckless conduct of the president. If he had just turned over the documents, which I think every other person in the country would have done, they're the government's documents, they're official records, they're not his personal records. Battle plans for an attack on another country or Defense Department documents about our capabilities are in no universe Donald J. Trump's personal documents. They are the government's documents. This idea that the president has complete authority to declare any document personal is obvious. It's facially ridiculous. That opinion had to do with the distinction between official records, which are records prepared by government agencies for the purpose of government action, and personal documents as opposed to official documents, which are things prepared by the president, such as a diary or notes, which are not used in the government's deliberations. And yes, as to the second class, stuff that the president himself generates, the president has some discretion. But these are official documents. It's inarguable. The president's daily brief provided by the intelligence community is not Donald J. Trump's personal document, period.
The fact is that Trump was indicted precisely because he thought that government records that did not belong to him and that were classified were somehow his personal property. And that's despite the fact that the National Archives and law enforcement let him know on a relentless basis over the course of more than a year that that wasn't the case. They requested those documents be returned, he refused, they subpoenaed them, he defied it, he issued an attestation from his lawyers falsely asserting that they'd been returned when they hadn't, and ultimately, a federal magistrate issued a search warrant which was executed by the FBI and turned up exactly what he pretended he'd given back. So if you're looking for the person who was willfully ignoring the Presidential Records Act, I think we found the guy. Consider too, while we're on the topic of violating the Presidential Records Act, let's not pretend that Trump didn't know exactly what he was doing. Because while Trump maintains in his defense that he declassified everything and that he had carte blanche to do whatever he wanted with those documents, according to the actual indictment, quote, in July 2021, at Trump National Golf Club in Bedminster, New Jersey, during an audio recorded meeting with a writer, a publisher, and 2 members of his staff, none of whom possessed a security clearance, Trump showed and described a plan of attack that Trump said was prepared for him by the Department of Defense and a senior military official. Trump told the individuals that the plan was highly confidential and secret. Trump also said, as president, I could have declassified it, and now I can't, you know, but this is still a secret. So yeah, if Alina Habba wants to point out which part of doling out classified information to unauthorized personnel is part of the Presidential Records Act, I'd love to hear it. And look, I get that it's her job to defend her client, but there is a reason that she's undergoing this public PR campaign. She is employing the old Trump tactic of trying to win in the court of public opinion because she knows that she can't win in a courtroom where it actually matters. You don't see the DOJ out there making its case to Newsmax or OAN or Fox because they don't need to, because the facts are on their side. But because Trump's criminality is so obvious, so evident, so clear, their best bet is to try and wage some disinformation campaign that Trump is innocent. And they'll invoke the Presidential Records Act and the Espionage Act and lecture everyone else about how they don't know what those laws say, all the while proving that it's them who have no earthly clue what those laws say. Because Trump may not have a defense, he may not have good lawyers, he may not have the facts on his side, but he and his team sure do know how to project, and they're making that part abundantly clear. Before you go, I need some help. Please subscribe to this channel and do your part to help grow the progressive media ecosystem. I don't do sponsorships or paid ads, I won't ask for money, but just subscribing to this channel goes a really long way, and it helps get the message out to more people. The subscribe button is right here on the screen. You can also subscribe to my Spanish language channel, which I made to reach those crucial Spanish-speaking voters. That link is on the screen too. And finally, if you want to listen to my audio podcast, you can follow that link as well. Thanks so much for watching.